afternoon, everyone. My name is Sarah Bennet, and I'm with Community Capital Advisors. We work with foundations, and many of them invest directly in CDFIs. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Elizabeth Schott, who is the CEO of Accion, serving Southern California. And Elizabeth has been with Accion since 2004 and has been the CEO since 2009. And she's really a thought leader in the industry. She has more than 20 years of experience working with nonprofits and small businesses. And we're really lucky to have her here today because she is an amazing resource on CDFIs. And as many of you know, CDFIs have really been our first economic responders in this crisis, stepping in to really immediately help small businesses, nonprofits, and individuals who have been impacted by COVID. So today we're going to hear about how Accion, under Elizabeth's leadership, have been critical economic first responders for small businesses in Southern California. So Elizabeth, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. And yes, we have been responding to many of the needs of our small businesses during these challenging times. And I'm excited to share a little bit more with your community and talk about ways that folks can support small businesses during this recovery that we have.
Great. Well, let's dive in with maybe starting from the small business perspective. Can you walk us through what you've been seeing with your customers?
Sure. So with our organization, Accion here, we're based in San Diego, but we do service a larger geographic territory of 4 counties, which are San Bernardino, Riverside, Imperial, and San Diego counties. And we have a portfolio of about $8.5 million out to small businesses. And the majority of our clients that we've historically served are primarily low to moderate income and minority-owned businesses. And what we do is we really provide access to capital both in loans and then education, training, and resources for those entrepreneurs to really start or grow and contribute to their local communities and economies. And so obviously when this situation occurred in March, small businesses are being very, very challenged during these times, as you can imagine. The base of our clients are generally really service-based, retail, products. And so many of them have a lot of different uncertainties during this time. And so, the first order of response was to look at our current clients, and many, many small business owners during this time initially are looking for what are the ways that they can relieve cash flow burdens right now, and so we worked with a lot of our small business clients initially right in March and April to really look at opportunities to help them with payment relief and also restructuring loan payments. And then another big thing that we worked with small businesses on was just really navigating all of the different resources out there in the community for them, because it became overwhelming, to identify grant programs and federal assistance programs and, opportunities to get relief on some of their payments from utility companies and things like that. So we've seen a lot of small businesses need help in navigation of just those educational resources, translating them into different languages so that we can help them to really identify what's going to best support them in weathering these times.
Okay. I know when we spoke earlier, you mentioned that there are actually some of your small businesses that were seeing a surge or an increase in, opportunities. I'm wondering if you could talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think it's different for every type of small business. I mean, we are seeing some small segments of industries that actually are growing during these times and need access to capital to really fuel some of that growth. Some examples of that are cleaning companies, technology companies, some of our food-based businesses, fitness apparel companies, and they are seeing increased demand for their services. And so as a response, I think that CDFIs have the opportunity to work with clients who are maybe in those industries, and we're really working with them to funnel them through our traditional loan program where we could support that growth, or maybe some of the protocols and regulatory things, just given the CDC's health guidelines that businesses are having to put into place in order to make sure that they're complying with social distancing or sanitation practices and things like that. So we are seeing some lending through our traditional sources, but then we're also responding and working with investors and donors to have and facilitate and administer low interest loan programs and products out to these small business owners who maybe have been affected and impacted from a revenue perspective, to help them weather through these times with access to capital to pay existing expenses, or to also retrofit their business and really pivot and be more innovative in how they're delivering their business services to the community.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. It's really interesting things going on right now in the small business community in terms of challenges and opportunities, and exciting to hear how Accion is being a part of that. So thank you for
Yeah, and
sharing.
I think one of the things too that we saw, particularly in our low to moderate income and minority owned businesses, is that a lot of times too, with the federal assistance programs like the PPP program, many of them in the first round or two of that program didn't have access to actually receive some of that funding. And it was a variety of different reasons. In some cases, they didn't have established banking relationships. In other cases, they didn't have the proper documentation in place in order to actually access some of that. In other cases, some of them were able to get some funding through that, but maybe it wasn't enough to actually cover what they needed during these times. And so I think CDFIs play a critical role in reaching these communities, because historically, as CDFIs, our mission as a community development financial institution is really to support low to moderate income communities and minority owned businesses. And so CDFIs have an ability really just to work with a lot of community-based organizations and nonprofit partners, government partners, to actually outreach to these communities. And we also have the ability to work with people in different languages and do a lot of the technical assistance and education that it requires in order to support these communities with access to capital. And so I think through some of the relief lending that many CDFIs are doing across the state of California and across the nation, that they are really finding themselves to be a one-stop shop for businesses to navigate a lot of these different resources, whether it's grant programs, whether it's the PPP funding. Many CDFIs are also doing PPP lending, whether it's COVID relief, lower interest products, or just helping people to navigate the education and the other small business development centers and places where they can go to help them really pivot their businesses during these times, because we've seen so many businesses have to reimagine their business model, right? A restaurant doing only takeout or doing only online orders versus full capacity in-house, service. And so we've really tried to look at the business resources and ecosystem holistically and support these businesses with opportunity to identify what are the best resources for them based off of their current situation.